Hey, 42 here. How many friends do you have? If the answer is 1 or 2, or maybe even none at all, then you could be an extraordinarily intelligent person, possibly even genius level. Either that or you're a massive gentleman's pickle. Psychologist Satoshi Kanazawa of the London School of Economics measured the happiness levels of 15,000 people with various IQ levels. He measured the happiness of all the subjects on 2 occasions, once whilst they were socialising with a group of friends, and then again when they were completely alone. What the results showed was that for people with low to average intelligence levels, those with the combined brain power of the Beckhams, reported greater self-happiness when they spent time with friends, and it seemed that the more friends they had, the happier it made them. But, astonishingly, the exact opposite was true for people with very high intelligence levels. They reported greater happiness when alone. In fact, it was noted that those at the top end of the intelligence spectrum actually felt considerably less happy when spending time with friends. Some theorise this is because intelligent individuals are more sceptical of others. They are more able to see the faults inherent in humankind, and so prefer to not get tangled up in the blues of their unpredictable and unreliable brethren. It's also thought that when intelligent people do form friendships, it's mostly for personal gain or simply out of awkwardness and/or expectancy. Whereas us mortals form friendships for silly reasons like emotional support, or sometimes a lust for attention and popularity. Smart people don't need emotional support, we have our textbooks to cry into. This aversion towards human interaction actually intensifies in a predictable and linear manner with increased intelligence. In the most prime examples of mental acuity that we've come to know and learn about in school, we see a great struggle to form bonds and relationships with other beings. The great Nikola Tesla never married or had sex. His tastes were far more avian in nature. He fell in love with a pigeon. I shit you not. He grew a great fondness for one particular pigeon and actually wrote this about her. I loved that pigeon as a man loves a woman, and she loved me. As long as I had her, there was a purpose to my life. That's a bit weird, mate. Brian May lookalike and physicist Isaac Newton was one of the most brilliant men to ever walk the earth. Seriously, we owe a lot to him. He founded gravity, calculus, and the laws of motion, not to mention countless other things. He basically created the groundwork for all modern day physics. Yet, to say that he was socially awkward is a gross understatement. He was immensely private, never formed any kinds of friendships, apart from a mild acquaintanceship with a Swiss mathematician, and he died a virgin. Happiness in intelligent people is the rarest thing I know. Ernest Hemingway. And he met a lot of people. It's not that highly intelligent people are antisocial, it's just that they are in the vast minority of people, and so struggle to find others that share their views on the world and accept them for all their faults and their often acutely fastidious nature. Because, after all, no matter how many times you've been told the scientifically proven falsehood of opposites attract, it's actually similarities that bring people together and form lasting bonds. And I guess similarities with others are scarce. When you are adamant that the Earth revolves around the Sun and the rest of the moronic folk that you share this planet with point blankly refuse to believe you. I know, Copernicus, it's tough, but hang in there, mate. They'll believe you, eventually, just not in your lifetime. But Kanazawa's study also found a disturbing correlation that actually affects all of us, not just the geeks. His findings showed that people who lived in more densely populated areas were significantly less happy than those that live in less populated areas. This is not the first scientific study to acknowledge this phenomenon. Countless studies have found that big cities harbour hatred towards our fellow people, whereas the friendliest and most inviting of people can be found in small towns and rural settlements. This phenomenon has been observed all over the world. Heck, you don't even need studies to observe this. Just try making eye contact with literally anybody in London, or just being a person in Paris. People can be frosty at the best of times. Even in these world-class cities that supposedly provide everything a person could ever want and more. Does this then reveal a dark truth about the human condition? Perhaps we're not designed to live together with one another, no matter how intelligent or unintelligent you may be. Nah, screw that, that's not true, because studies show that friendliness and compassion actually thrive in very small communities. It actually goes back to our evolutionary past. Our ancestors living on the Great Plains of Africa would have lived in small groups. It was just more practical this way, easier to travel and safer when you know everyone around you by grunt. The only downside to living in this way is that you'd have to reproduce with your cousin, or aunt, whichever you prefer really. Groups rarely mixed, and if they did, it would probably end up in conflict, so people just stayed in their small communities, hundreds of miles from everyone else. And scientists believe that this same attitude is still instilled deep within us today. As much as some people feel like moving to a big city and forming an enormous circle of friends will bring them success and happiness and more followers on Instaface, we are just fighting against our own evolution. Perhaps we should all just learn to get along with the people that we know first. Unless you're highly intelligent, of course, in which case, I'm sorry, but you're just not cut out for relationships. Maybe try befriending a pigeon. Who knows, it could even lead to more. Thanks for watching. Do you ever get the feeling that people are talking about you behind your back? Well, that's because they are. The British government has what's called a division of power, in which the Prime Minister is not actually the country leader.